Hey there everyone, I am Shufflecat and welcome to Shuffle's Showcase. I've been doing a couple of games with Alchemist. I have to admit Alchemist is probably my worst bloodline ever, so that's probably why I've been doing it a lot lately. I've just kind of trying to understand the core mechanical ideas or whatever that I don't understand about Alchemist. And one of the things that I kind of identified about myself is redundancy. If you were seeing right there, I had Barrier on, and then I put the Stormcaller to sleep. And I've just been noticing that there's a lot of redundancy in my Alchemist play, in that I use one ability, which really should be enough to relieve pressure from myself or from somebody else, and then I use another ability, which also by itself would be enough to reduce the pressure on myself or someone else. So it's really redundant, and that leads to really bad cooldown management. And by bad cooldown management, I mean I don't have any of the cooldowns that I need when I need it. So it would be kind of like exactly like that. If I use Barrier, Clarity Potion in order to knock someone back, and then used Sleep and Deadly Injection, and then like healed myself up and popped Gurgons or something like that, it would be the same problem. It would be really redundant. So in order to, I guess, continue reiterating this, Alchemist is mostly a type of bloodline that you have to use the minimum, and we'll see kind of like what that causes. Now, you see that my TPS was pretty high, and one could say that's pretty awesome if you have a really high TPS with your worst bloodline or something like that. But that might also be because of that redundancy. If you have two abilities used when you could have only have used one, then your TPS might actually double. But if you're not using that TPS in the effective way, then you've got a serious problem. Like you saw in that last round, the Stalker got really low. He was actually in danger of dying by the end of it. But yes, I did have that high TPS, so you could say, oh no, I'm doing everything I needed to. Not really. Now right there, I was almost thinking about using the Clarity Potion in order to knock those people back into Thorn's ultimate. I'm not sure why I didn't. But once again, Stalker went down. If we take a quick look at my TPS, it's like 63 right now. Also, I saw that Guardian, he spaces right there. I want to keep him in my ultimate. His space is the only thing that can keep him out of it, so that's why I used that right there. Even though I was attacking a tank, he didn't have any of his outs, so that puts some pressure on him and relieves some for myself. Kind of going back to Alchemist, in my opinion, is really hard to heal with, and it might be because you really have to. It's one of those bloodlines, and I've said this about Stormcaller as well. It's a bloodline that you have to have a plan with. If you don't have a plan for how you're going to use your abilities and how you're going to be alive in the next couple of seconds, then that means that you're going to be dead in those next couple of seconds. Enough about Stormcaller. In the sense of Alchemist, you have to really understand, and this is true about other bloodlines, but it's especially true for bloodlines like Alchemist, is that you have to understand which abilities you're going to use and in which order. I don't mean like using combos or something like that. I mean planning out how your abilities interact with the environment around you. Now right here, I'm doing a good job. Right here, I'm probably doing that infamous holding down M2 as a Alchemist. However, you might see that I'm not doing all that much in terms of damage. I mean, I tried to. I threw a sleep at the Astronomer, but that didn't work out too well. And also right here, I could have used my shield a little bit earlier, and that would have been good against that Stormcaller. But in general, yes, I am holding down M2, but I'm also not throwing out Deadly Injects all that much. That's probably, if I remember correctly, that's the first Deadly Inject that I actually used through this whole round. And when I did that, I completely forgot about healing up the Stalker, so now he's dead. So You could say that that was another sense of redundancy, or that was just a bit of tunnel vision there because I was attacking the astronomer. So it's a very fine balance when you're playing Alchemist, and that's why I say that it's one of those that you have to have a plan for, and probably why certain new players think that Alchemist is a little bit difficult to play. So, anyway, in terms of how to kind of pay attention to all of your allies, I suppose I'm trying to say that. It's something that comes with experience, in my opinion. I used to play Astronomer quite a bit, and I wouldn't have... Astronomer was the first healer I ever started out with, so when I started out with him, I either completely forgot that I had an M2. In fact, actually, when I was starting out with healers completely, I forgot that the M2 button would heal me, because I did start out playing Bloodline Champions as Thorn. In fact, I'm accidentally spectating the Thorn instead of myself, which that's kind of embarrassing. Anyway, I started out Bloodline Champions as Thorn, so whenever I would play any other Bloodline, especially healer, I would completely forget about my M2, and I would just work on damaging. So it took me a little while to remember to heal people. But when I finally did remember that I had the ability to heal, I would often lose track of which one of my allies was doing what, pretty much. And even if you play a DPSer, I would say that learning how to play a healer is a really good work on core mechanics. I say core mechanics when I say anything that you would have to do as any bloodline. And I say that as all bloodlines have to pay attention to their allies. They have to pay attention to everybody on the field. So a healer has to do that a lot more than most bloodlines. Most bloodlines you can kind of ignore what your allies are doing and then just go off on your own. But as a healer, you're required to throw M2s at your allies, or else they'll rage at you, pretty much. So, well, I'm trying to remember what I was talking about originally. I would suggest playing healers for anybody because it allows you to work on that core mechanic of looking at your allies every so often and understanding their matchups and what they're doing at that exact moment. And that actually kind of changing the subjects twice there and remembering what my original topic was that when I started off with Astronomer, I would lose track of that, and now I'm a little bit better at it. However, it's different when you switch over to Alchemist because Alchemist does have that little bit of speed deprivation that Astronomer doesn't. Astronomer has a teleport and he can just go wherever he wants to go. So that's pretty much why I say that Alchemist is a very plan-heavy bloodline, because you don't have the space to just instantaneously go wherever you want to. You have to understand where are your allies going to go and how do I put myself within healing range of them. So that's why it gets a little bit difficult, in my case, to heal my allies, because right there I could have gotten line of sighted against my Stalker ally, and I didn't put myself in the correct position, and that allowed the Guardian to jump on me pretty much whenever he wanted to, and then burst down all of my hit points as soon as he had ult. So that leads to this game going down. It was mostly because I didn't plan ahead of what the positioning would look like, and that cost me all of that burst damage. So that's that for the first game. I don't remember if I have a Alchemist. In fact, actually, I'm pretty sure I have an Alchemist game for the next game here, coming up in a minute. Welcome back. We're playing Alchemist again, just like I promised. And when I was first looking at this replay, just like in the loading screen, I thought it was kind of interesting that it's up against a Herald of Insight. And usually when I'm playing Alchemist, I kind of like to do a little bit of aggressive Alchemist play and damage people, just because I feel like Alchemist, her damage is really underappreciated. So I kind of like to throw in some M1s there every so often as well. But my first thought, obviously, against a Herald of Insight is, Chronoflux. And obviously you shouldn't be throwing out that much, but it can also block your heals. So that's another one of those planning out positioning, because if someone puts their Chronoflux in such a way that you can't heal your allies while they're getting bursted down, then that's definitely a problem. Some people might wonder, Shuffle, how did you survive just now? That Guardian definitely was coming after you, or something, and then suddenly you just didn't lose any health whatsoever. And I'm speaking mostly to newer players who, that Guardian spaced on me, so I immediately knew he didn't have any way of getting out of that goo. He didn't have any abilities that would save him from that. So I threw down my ultimate, and suddenly now he's in trouble, and most of his mindset is going to be on, oh my god, how do I survive? And then I threw down a Clarity in order to push him back into there and hit him a couple of times with M1, making sure not to hit his trance, because that would be the only other way of him escaping. Also, the positioning for that game was pretty good. If you look down at the mini-map, we were down here, and what I like to call kind of like the ranged hallway, where all of your enemies are getting funneled in, and because we have the advantage with 2 range versus they only have 1 range, then we have a little bit of extra damage. Now, a lot of people, as soon as they see somebody in Chains of Zex, they like to burst them down, so that's why I put the barrier on the gunner there. Plus, I also had a really retreated position, so I knew that nobody was going to get to me anytime soon. Ooh, that really hurts. I wanted to put my barrier on him, and you saw my mouse hovering over him for a little bit, but couldn't do it. Now, this Seeker, he just used his Blitz. So that's why I used my ult on him as well. The only thing that can get him out is, of course, Illusion right there. And also that kind of forced the Herald. He used his space. And that's the only thing he can use against Deadly Inject. So you saw that go up there immediately. And I really should have just used Barrier on myself. That's why I died. So, whatever. Alchemist is, of course, yeah, it's my worst bloodline. And I do, when I play these games, I make a lot of mistakes. And when I watch these replays, I'm of course facepalming. I do a lot of stuff that I wish I wouldn't do when I was playing these games. But I feel like it really helps to watch replays of your own gameplay. And for me, that's specifically why I made this Shuffle Showcase series, because I feel like it's a little bit boring to sit there and watch your own replay. So I make it fun by talking to myself and then recording me talking to myself, which is awesome. Alright. So, the problem with double ranged is that really we're not getting a lot of zoning off onto that energy rune. We could actually be doing that a little bit better, but we are tending to this more subdued back here positioning, and that's causing us not to get the energy rune. It's causing you to get a little bit more energy. And I would definitely encourage people, if you're playing ranged, to try to be a little bit more aggressive. I know somebody is going to take that advice, and they're probably going to run directly in and then get yelled at in SMM like, oh, you're not a melee, stop being so stupid. It's another one of those balance things, and I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with that, especially since I'm supposed to be talking about Alchemist, given how this is a Alchemist replay and stuff. But Alchemist can be aggressive, as I've played some games with it like that. I've especially talked to some Alchemist players, and they seem to play in a little bit of an aggressive style, but also in a... Now right there, I was paying more attention to that than I was to actually talking right there. That Herald, he used Gurgans, the Aegis of Gurgans, and that's really the only thing that I find it useful for, is when you're stuck in somebody's ult and you're about to die, you don't have any outs, you can just push the button for your medallion, and suddenly now you're A-okay. I was complaining a little bit about it in all chat. Now where was I going? Now, with a Alchemist, these ranged could actually take over the rune, because right there you saw that there was a Hailstorm on it, and the Stormcaller could easily move up on it, and especially since you have Alchemist, anytime you're in trouble, the Alchemist can just put barrier on you. And since M2 has such a long range on it, since your heals can just go way out there and your barrier can go way out there, then you can really just sit back. And right here, we're of course in this corner, which is great positioning, especially since we can get to the rune whenever it pops, which it's about to pretty soon. But also it's really great because anybody who wants to come and be aggressive has to use their space. Now that space, I'm pretty sure, missed his teammate, so it didn't get reset, and I used that on the Guardian. However, the Stormcaller used it, he used his, whatchamacallit, the Eye of the Storm, where he puts everybody in a tornado, not everybody, but one person in a tornado. He used it on the Guardian when he was in my ultimate. And I did yell at him a little bit, I have to admit. I was just like, why did you do that? So that's kind of one of those, pay attention to what your teammates are doing. If you see an Alchemist has his ultimate, then, in fact, if you see anybody has their ultimate, then understand that there are certain abilities, like your E as a Stormcaller, your Tornado Call as a Nomad or whatever, that you don't want to use when somebody's using their ultimate. So it's definitely something that you can work on as a newer player. If you see that somebody has their ultimate, to be a little bit careful with abilities that can remove people from combat and let them avoid getting any damage. In fact, it's especially really good to save those abilities, because when, for instance, when I as an Alchemist use my ultimate, then you can use that Storm ability in order to stop somebody else from doing counter pressure. So say if I used the ultimate on the Guardian and he was stuck in the ultimate, then you can use your Storm in order to remove the healer from the ability to heal. So not only is he taking damage from the ultimate, but also he's taking what I like to call like kind of pretend damage, where you're not getting heals that you would have otherwise have gotten, so that indirectly damages somebody. Now, we're not rune zoning very well, but what we are doing really well is we're actually sticking together very closely. Not close enough that an AoE will hit both of two people at the same time, but we seem to have an unofficial leader, which appears to be kind of like this Stormcaller, and wherever he goes, we're going. And that's probably because the gunner's following me, I'm following the Stormcaller, and the Stormcaller's really just doing whatever he wants to. But that is actually an official kind of mindset, and it kind of looks like the other team's doing it as well, but their Guardian really just isn't getting the capability of falling. Now right there, I was actually standing in the fire a little bit on purpose, because I wanted to get more energy from using M2 on myself, and because of that, I actually had enough energy to get an ultimate off. And right about here, yeah, I remember this specifically. I put this ultimate here, and that blocked off the healer from healing the Guardian, and that blocked the Guardian from getting within range of the healer. And the Herald tried to get within range, but that ended up killing it. So that was actually really good ult positioning right there, especially in that tight little hallway. And we end up winning from that. So that was our 2 games for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.